Valentine's Day isn't a romantic celebration. It's a financial event. Every February, while millions of people think they're looking for love, one app is counting something completely different. Clicks, swipes, subscriptions, recurring payments. And at the end of this video, I'm going to ask you a question you've probably never asked yourself about every app you use daily. But before we get there, you need to understand how Tinder turned human desire into nearly $2 billion annually. Because this isn't a story about dating. It's the story of how loneliness became industrialized. Let's start with a brutal fact nobody tells you. Every year between January 1st and February 14th, Tinder enters what the industry calls peak season. Not because people find love, but because the fear of not having it becomes more profitable than ever. The numbers are obscene. In February 2024, Tinder registered 2.1 million extra messages per day compared to any other month. Users editing their profiles 486 times per minute. 13% more swipes than the annual average. 6% more matches. Wait, it gets better. On February 4th, known as Dating Sunday, activity on Tinder exploded. Almost 13% more swipes than the year's average. 10% more messages. 380 matches per second during peak hours. We're not even talking about Valentine's Day yet. We're talking about 10 days before. Because Valentine's Day doesn't represent flowers or promises. It represents traffic spikes, conversion increases, and psychological willingness to spend. Tinder doesn't sell dates. It sells emotional urgency. And February is the perfect moment to monetize it. Now let me show you how this machine really works. Tinder was born in 2012 inside Hatch Labs, an incubator backed by IAC, Barry Diller's media giant. From the beginning, it wasn't a romantic experiment by college kids. It was a product designed to measure, capture, and monetize human behavior. The visible creators were Sean Rad, Jonathan Badeen, and Justin Mateen, but the application was integrated from day one into a massive corporate structure. In less than 2 years, Tinder was no longer a dating app. It was a daily habit. By 2024, Tinder surpasses 75 million monthly active users with presence in more than 190 countries. But here's the twist that changes everything. Tinder isn't an independent company. It's the crown jewel of Match Group, a conglomerate that also controls Hinge, OkCupid, Plenty of Fish, and other platforms. Match Group reports annual revenues of $3.5 billion. And Tinder alone generates between 1.9 and 2 billion. It's not a secondary product. It's the financial heart of the group. 55 to 60% of all the conglomerate's revenue comes from a single app. But here comes the uncomfortable part. Tinder's real operation isn't oriented toward creating stable relationships. It's designed to maximize usage time, controlled frustration, and microtransactions. The famous swipe isn't a social innovation. It's an intermittent reinforcement mechanic identical to the one used by slot machines in casinos. The user doesn't know when the match will come, doesn't know if they'll respond, doesn't know if it'll be real. That uncertainty generates dopamine. Dopamine generates repetition. Repetition generates data. And data generates money. Here's the truth nobody admits. Tinder doesn't win when you form a couple. It wins when you don't quite form one. A user who finds a stable relationship and deletes the app is a lost customer. The system is designed to keep you searching, not finding. That's why the algorithm regulates visibility, limits likes, dozes out matches, and then offers the solution for a price. Tinder Plus, Platinum. They don't sell love. They sell algorithmic advantage. More visibility, more likes, priority over other profiles. They turn human desire into a paid marketplace where those who don't pay play at a structural disadvantage. And Valentine's Day amplifies all this brutally. Users who haven't opened the app in months return. New profiles are created driven by social pressure. People who would never pay for a premium subscription do it just for this month. In the 2 weeks before February 14, 2024, dating app downloads increased 8%. On February 11th, they rose 1% above the monthly average. On February 12th, they shot up 8% more as users rushed to find someone before the big day. Not because love increases, but because emotional urgency increases. Tinder doesn't celebrate Valentine's Day. It exploits it. It offers temporary boosts, promotions, extra visibility. It doesn't solve loneliness. It monetizes it by the hour. And it works because the model is perfectly calibrated. But let's go deeper, because this is where the business gets truly dark. The model becomes even cruder when you observe gender asymmetry. Independent studies have demonstrated that a small percentage of male profiles concentrates the majority of female matches, while most men receive minimal interaction. The statistics are devastating. The match rate for women is 10%. For men it's 0.6%. 46% of women swipe right. Only 14% of men do. This inequality isn't a bug. It's a feature. Tinder doesn't try to balance it because it's precisely that frustration that pushes people to pay. 96% of paid subscribers are men. Only 4% are women. The system converts male desperation into recurring revenue. From the inside, the story isn't clean either. Sean Rad, co-founder and original CEO, was expelled after internal conflicts and misconduct accusations. Justin Mateen, another co-founder, was sued for sexual harassment by Whitney Wolfe, who ended up leaving the company and founding Bumble. Tinder didn't just monetize relationships. It was born wrapped in power struggles, corporate control, and legal scandals. But the darkest impact isn't corporate, it's social. Tinder has been the scene of romance scams, financial fraud, robberies, and sexual assaults. The most notorious case was Simon Leviev, known as the Tinder swindler. He used the platform to defraud women for millions of dollars, presenting himself as the son of a diamond magnate. He spent large sums of money that weren't his, maintained an ostentatious lifestyle, and built trust until leaving his victims in debt. It wasn't an isolated case. It was a logical consequence of a system that prioritizes speed, appearance, and validation over real verification. In New York in 2025, a 25-year-old woman and two accomplices used Tinder to lure men, meet with them, and then rob them with violence and weapons after the encounter, receiving 10-year prison sentences each for attempted armed robbery. In Spain the same year, a man was arrested who, after arranging a date, drugged and assaulted his victim in her own home to steal money, bank card, and phone, then making fraudulent charges. In Utah, a victim agreed to get into the vehicle of someone she met on the app and was repeatedly attacked with a knife by a man later identified as a criminal with multiple serious charges. Real judicial process with years of sentencing for attempted homicide. Tinder has implemented facial verifications and reporting systems, reducing fraudulent accounts by approximately 40% in some states. But the central incentive doesn't change. Maximize interactions. Each scandal generates headlines. Each headline generates traffic. And traffic generates revenue. Even morbidity is profitable. On a cultural level, Tinder relies on celebrities, athletes, and influencers. It doesn't matter whether they use the app or not. What matters is that the public believes something happens there. Kylie Kelsey, presenter and wife of an NFL player, shared on a podcast how she met her current husband through Tinder during her college years. Zac Efron commented on having tried to use Tinder unsuccessfully because his profile was perceived as fake. Comedian Billy Eichner recounted how his account was suspended for supposed rule violations, possibly due to identity confusion. Tinder doesn't sell dates. It sells the sensation of infinite possibility. The illusion that the next swipe can change everything, even though statistically it almost never does. And here comes the final data point that closes the circle. By 2024, Tinder has 9.6 million paid subscribers, 60 million monthly active users, revenue of almost $2 billion. Match Group in total bills $3.5 billion. Competition exists. Bumble. OkCupid. But Tinder retains something key. Cultural scale. It's the generic verb, the name that represents the entire category. Like Google with searches. Like Uber with transportation. And that's almost impossible to dethrone. Today, Tinder isn't an app. It's an invisible social infrastructure that intermediates relationships, defines power dynamics, and reorders human expectations. It doesn't decide who loves. It decides who's seen. And that's much more powerful. Tinder didn't win because it understood love. It won because it understood loneliness. It didn't win because it united people. It won because it monetized the wait. While the world debates whether modern dating is broken, the platform already got paid. And here's the final question I promised you at the start. The question that changes everything. What other businesses are doing exactly the same thing to you but you haven't noticed yet? Think about it. Every app you use. Every platform where you seek validation. Every service that promises to connect you but never quite solves the problem. Because if you learned anything from Tinder, it's this. The business is never to solve your need. The business is to manage it, dose it, monetize it, month after month, year after year. Especially in February when the calendar, culture, and social pressure work in its favor. Leave it in the comments. What other platform do you think is playing exactly the same game? Because this uncomfortable model didn't start with Tinder, and it definitely doesn't end with it.